Hey guys, welcome to Comfy Cozy Up. It is New Year's Eve. I am recording this on New Year's Eve and I am so happy to be done with the year because I'm looking forward to some new things, some new books. But I'm going to end the year talking about books that I really enjoyed. And these are books I enjoyed for various reasons, whether I was entertained, I was inspired, it was thought-provoking, it was an emotional read, it was, the writing style was so good, or various reasons. But I have literally a lot of different genres in my mix, and I couldn't really downsize it to nothing more than 12, like less than 12. I tried 10, but it was just two other books. I was like, no, I need to talk about these books. So I'm not gonna go in depth with these books because I did a review pretty much for all of them. And I'm going to link a lot of the reviews that I did, or wrap-ups that I did where I talked about them. So I'm going to start with my mom, one of my mom's favorite. This year I read two of her favorite books, and the one that I really enjoyed was Great Expectation by Charles Dickens. And I've read some Charles Dickens in the past, and the storyline always pissed me off for some reason. Talked about this book, I would link it, especially the one that really pissed me off. But this one I really liked. I liked the hopefulness of the ending. I like the idea of what makes a gentleman, and this idea that anybody can create or make a gentleman, that kind of deal. And the women role back then, of being stable, being not so much about love, but it's more about stability. And sadly, but it is the reality of that era. And I really like this. It was easy to follow, easy to get into. I like the stories of the side characters in this. It was really up my alley, and I really like this one. The next book I want to talk about was my favorite YA book that I've read, and that is The Poet X. I love these books that are coming out more and more. Started with Jacqueline Woodson, now she's doing it, and there's a few others that's coming out where it's written in poetic style. And I like that she's able to do this and capture the story brilliantly. There's small verses that are pack a punch in the storyline, and it's another one of those coming of age and trying to find your identity and not living in the shadows of what your mom wants, your mom's expectation of how you should be, and capturing that moment through verses. And I thought it was really well done, and I really enjoyed this one. The next one I want to talk about is the only book I don't have a physical copy of, and that's Ethics. It is a story that I never thought I would like that, but it really got my damn attention the whole year. It really wrapped me up in all the mess, the good, the bad, the ugly. It was just, and then the character, I just love one of the main characters. He was just, the way he was written, he just seemed like that sexy, take charge and don't mess with me kind of dude. And I loved it. It was like the ultimate guilty pleasure, and I loved it. And it's 6 books in the series. I did a full review where I talked about the series. Did not enjoy all 6 books, but the first one, I have to say, has to make the list because that book started the journey. That first one made me want to keep going and made me still in the book as far as the spin-off that's coming out in January. So yeah, it's definitely one of my go-to storyline and books that I can't stop thinking about this year. So I had to make a list. The next one I want to talk about is The Same Earth by Kai Miller. Now I've read 2 Kai Miller this year, and what I love about this is he has a way of talking about religious storyline and have me laughing. Because this is a town that's really wrapped up in this particular church and the people of the church and what they believe. And a lot of times it's not so much about the actual written scripture, more so that what they think should be the way, and if you're not on their side, how they chastise and start drama. This is what this was. It was very entertaining. I laughed so hard. I had moments where I'm like, I know that's not supposed to be funny, but it was funny as hell to me. So I love this. I thought it was one of his well done one, and he's also has a way with words. He's originally a poet, so his writing style it just flows well, and it's just beautiful written, and I love this. The next book I want to talk about is the only memoir that made my list, and that is Becoming by Michelle Obama. And it was a good way to start the year off. I read this in January. It was just an inspirational. I love the pre Obama era, where she talks about her childhood, her family dynamic, getting into law school and becoming this lawyer, and how she gets back and feels about, you know, children then and their that are in a less fortunate situation. I like that part. And then also when she talks about the Obama era, talk about her her as a woman and how she feels, and getting, you know, finding that place of still holding on to bits and pieces of her when she is now looked at, you know, by millions, you know, billions at this point worldwide, of who she is, who she's supposed to be, you know. So I like that. The next book I want to talk about is a book that was loosely based on a true story, and that is The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. And let me tell you, this book, what I liked is the writing style that really made this book interesting, and the twist that he did to make this book interesting, because this book really isn't my cup of tea in terms of the storyline, because it was sad. It was sad, right? When you're reading stories of young black men who are treated very poorly, are put into the institutional situation and fighting to survive, and how it affects them even when they do get out, some who were able to get out, and as an adult, and you see that trauma, that psychological damage that's done to them. It's not a good read. It's just not a good read. But I liked how he approached the story, and how he did a twist on the story that lightened the blow of the sadness that goes along with this kind of storyline. He's just good, and I think it was a good book, and I really, really enjoyed this. It's an Orchestra of Minority by Chigozie Obioma, and now I did a reading vlog on this as well. And what I did like about this is how it's being told. The story's been told by a chi, which is like your self-conscious, the good part of you, and the chi's telling how this young man went from this farm guy who was a good guy, and how things escalated and changed him, and he became someone else, who's basically is lost and don't know how to find his way back to the good side. So it is a good book. It is interesting. I loved it. I love the whole folk tale that's wrapped up in this. The whole idea of your self-conscious telling a story kind of deal, how, you know, how you've changed and what made you change. This was creative. This was well done. I was here for it. Thumbs up all the way. So check out the full review. Thanks to Didi from Ground Girl Reading, made me read this. This is probably one of the best feelings to have when you finish a classic like this, that is chunky as hell, but you loved it. Loved it. This now is almost similar to the one I just showed you, because it is about a man who was wrongfully accused of treason and sent into a dungeon to basically die. And he was there for years, and how he was able to get in, and how he plot to seek revenge for what happened to him. And regardless of how you feel, I love the character. I mean, he had moments when he was getting off the cliff where somebody had to reel him back in, but I loved it. And what I love is it's a classic that was easy to read. It was a classic that was entertaining, that you just wanted to know what was going to happen next, and the side character just adds some juice to the story that you love. This is brilliant, well done, a classic that I highly recommend. Yes, it's chunky, it can be intimidating, because it took me a while to read it. However, it is worth reading. Pick it up, add it to your list, your TBR for next year. You won't regret it. The next book I want to talk about is the only book that really made me cry. Like, I freaking was doing well until I got to the end and I cried, and it's because there was that aha moment when I understood the main character, and I love that it tapped into something that is not talked about a lot, and that is Red as a Bone. And when I say Jacqueline Woodson really did a good job with this, it's a story where it's like either you get it or you don't kind of deal, because it is not full length bits and pieces. You're getting bits and pieces of the characters. So you have a pregnancy that basically devastated two families in different ways, and you're learning about the parents. You're hearing about the teenage kids. You're hearing about the parents, and you're also hearing about years later of the grandchild that comes in the picture, and you get to really understand why the parents feel like how they feel, and why the teens feel how they feel, and the two sides of family views on the whole situation. This is like, again, the expectation situation that comes into this story, and the main character, the teen mom, and you seeing how she's growing and how she's coping and how she's dealing with the situation, and her own expectation and how that affecting her, and in that confused state that she was in at times. But there's just that moment when with that clarity that of the story that you get, and it just crushed you. I was just like, oh, it was just so such an emotional read for me. I really loved this, and I appreciate that it was short. I know I've seen people say that they wanted more, and I think in this you don't need more, because there's that message that's in there that if you get bits and pieces, and you can definitely understand the story and appreciate it. So yes, I love this. The next book I want to talk about is a book, as soon as I was finished reading it, I wanted to read it again, and that is in West Mills. And this is a debut novel, and I talked briefly about this earlier. And what I liked about this is it also, it talks about friendship in a weird way, because in this book you have a woman who just came into the town, and she is emotionally going through some things, but she's just living the life up, drinking and having sex whenever, and not dealing with consequence of our action. And a neighbor who got fond of her and looked at her as his sister that he couldn't save, and he was gonna save her. And even though he has his own family, he has a wife and kids, and he has his own issues to deal with, but he could not help her. And that meant doing things that morally or immorally, there's all those situations that pops up, and he was willing to help her no matter what. And they see the consequences of all their action, and the secrets and the small town secrets that happen. It was a really nice historical fiction. I really enjoyed it, and I'll definitely read it again. The next book I want to talk about is that book that one thing about me, I love books with older character that talks about their life in a way that they own it. They own it. They don't have no regrets. It's like, I did it. Yes, it might have been messed up, but it happened. Life. I learned from it. Oh well. That kind of deal. And in this, you have a 90-year-old woman that was living it up and was telling all her business in this book. City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. Now, I love Broadway. I've seen probably about close to 20 Broadway plays in my life, and probably more than that, because I try to save all the playbills. And I love Broadway life, and not even just the Broadway life, but like the historical Broadway life, like how it was back in the 40s and the 50s. And this book gave me all of that. I loved it. I loved when they were talking about the seamstress era, the World War II era, how it affected Broadway life. And what made this book really juicy is the fact that this was a young girl. She was, late teens, now going to New York City and exposed to everything. They talk about sex a lot in this, because she didn't care. There's a particular line that I talked about in the reading vlog that I did, where how she explained what sex means to her. I mean, I was just like, whoa, yes, tell it, tell it. She is 90 and don't care at this point in her life. She did it. It's what is a part of her, and she owned it. And it was just like, yes, I mean, this story just gave me everything. And I love the history. Like I said, it was just so nice to read about that, and read about how the World War affected Broadway life back then, and the talent she had. Like, she was very talented, and that talent took her through a lot and sustained her for years. And to tap into that talent was I mean, I thought that was beautiful how they add that to the story. So I'm here for this. This was everything to me. And then the last book that I want to talk about, which I think a lot of people probably won't be surprised, and this book really gave me everything as far as being a Caribbean woman, and that is Patsy. Now, Nicole Dennis-benn wrote a book that has so much theme. Like, I can pick about 2 themes and review this and not touch on anything else, because this is a book that dealt with sexuality, it dealt with religion, it dealt with immigration, it dealt with family, it dealt with mental health, it dealt with poverty, and it dealt with friendship. You know, there's so many things in this that you can really address and talk about in this story. And I love that it grabs you in so many different ways that it makes you think and have this idea, especially when they're talking about parenting in this, because that's a really big topic in this book. And you want to feel bad for the main character, but then at the same time you also feel that certain disappointment. But then there's that understanding, because the things that she drops in this and that you think about as that, do everybody have that parenting instinct to withstand their own, what's the word, their own trauma that happened to them. You know, not every parent can just not think about their own trauma just because they're parents. If that's the best way I can put it in this case, without talking too much about this, why I said that. But it is a good book, and I find that it's a really good discussion book. I feel like if you have a book club, this will be a really perfect one to add, because you can really have a nice discussion on this book. And it's going to stir up a lot, especially for people who are parents, to really talk about this book. And the whole idea also of sexuality that's talked about. It, to me, it's not the full meat of the story. And I know sometimes people gravitated to that topic more in the story because that's what was advertised a lot. But it's not the meat of the story. Because one of the things that I really appreciate with her, because I went to one of her panel, is she wrote in a way where it wasn't intended, that sexuality was intended to be normal. You know, it's not supposed to be just like a topic of discussion. It's supposed to be like normal. Like, okay, you're gay, okay, what else? That kind of approach to the character. So, you know, so if you picking this up thinking you're going to get this extravagant lesbian story, this ain't it. So, you know, so just keep that in mind. It's so much more, and there's so much topic that is discussed in this, and it was done really nice, and I really loved it. And I highly recommend people pick this up. So yeah, guys, I got through all 12 books. Yay. So I'm gonna end this, but before I do, I want to know, what was your favorite book of 2019? Like, put it in the description, because sorry, not description, excuse me, put it in a comment, because I love seeing what people's favorite book is, and a lot of times, sometimes I might add it to my TBR so I can read it in the future and see why it was loved, especially, and I've done that in previous year and find that I love the books that somebody mentioned, which is another reason why I picked up Poetic X, because it was in a lot of people's favorite last year. So just let me know what your favorite, and I will definitely check it out. But thanks for watching, guys, and thanks for supporting me in 2019. Have a good day. Bye.